Latest football news, engaging debates,
and fascinating opinions.
Pitchside Talk on IO Radio. Welcome to Pitchside Talk here, back on IO Radios for another Friday. Hope you're well joined with me, George, this week. I hope, as I said, I hope you're all well. It's quite a bit windy where I am at the moment. It's very cold in the house. I don't really like it, but we've had another week of football action. Well, as always, I'm joined by our co-host and resident Ipswich Town fan, Dan, who's now wearing a cowboy hat, which we'll get onto later on. Isn't that right, Dan?
It is right, yeah. We're all American now. But yeah, it's been a very, very eventful week, Ipswich-wise. So it's really exciting. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Yes, we'll get onto that later on in the show. Well, before we mention what is coming up in the show this week, I better mention the social medias: Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram Talk_Pitch, YouTube, Mixcloud, both at Pitchside Talk. On YouTube, we do some other videos, actually a breaking news video, which we'll get onto a little bit later on. I don't want to spoil it, but if you want to watch that, hello to our YouTube channel to see that. Well, what are we talking about this week? We're going to be talking about Ipswich Town, a little bit of a double bill, but we actually had some bigger news really from Ipswich Town this week. The Premier League, the race for the top four is starting to heat up, and the relegation battle is getting very intense. And we'll be talking about the Champions League quarterfinals. The first legs have been played. We know what's happened in the first ties, and well, we've got some very interesting results. But when we come back, we'll be talking about Ipswich Town and another week of a roller coaster, really, I think we can say. Stay up to date with the latest footy news.
Pitchside Talk on IO Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on IO Radio's Fridays at 5 p.m. with me, George, and Dan, as always. Now, before we go on talking about Ipswich Town this week, a very eventful week once again for Ipswich Town. Something out of the blue, wearing a cowboy hat, if we could be perfectly honest. I've been mentioned the social medias: Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram Talk_Pitch, YouTube, Mixcloud, both at Pitchside Talk. And also on our YouTube channel, we have a very special video, which we're about to talk about in a few minutes time, but if you want to head over there and see it in a bit more detail, please do. I will mention it in a few minutes time. But before we move on to the big news that happened on Wednesday, we better mention Ipswich Town actually did play 2 games in that time over the Easter holidays, playing on Good Friday, getting a 2-1 victory over Bristol Rovers. Dan, Paul Cook described it really as great for 10 minutes, then terrible for 80. I guess that's quite a fair assessment by him, really, looking at the performance.
Yeah, absolutely a fair assessment. Obviously, the first 10 minutes were brilliant. Scored 2 goals. First one was the weirdest goal I've ever seen, but it's still a goal. But yeah, a really good start to the game. But then, we switched off one mistake from Dazelle, which he's looking poorer and poorer every game now. It's quite disappointing because, we know how good he can be. He's just really out of form at the moment. But of course, one mistake from Dazelle, and their player, chipped it over Holy, and our heads dropped again. we need to stop that from happening. We need to stop that confidence from going, just come from conceding 1 goal. But we held on for the win. I think at the moment, a win's the most important thing. Obviously, the performance was a little bit worrying for that 80 minutes because, again, we didn't really look like scoring. So, yeah, the performance was a bit worrying, but I think overall the 3 points are the most important thing against Bristol Rovers. And, I was okay with it. I was okay because at this end of the season, it's getting less and less games now. So points is what you want to pick up.
Yes, using a famous quote from an old manager, every point is a prisoner. I think we can say. But Ipswich did play another game. They played on Easter Monday, travelling to Rochdale, a team sitting bottom at the table, 3 wins in the last 20 games. Only 1 win at home this whole season, conceded 69 goals this whole season as well. And, well, the same old Town, they struggled, earning a 0-0 draw. Dan, this performance has to be the worst I think we've seen Ipswich Town play this whole season. No shots on target by either side here. The Rochdale sitting bottom of the league, and Ipswich can't register even a shot on target. or even get a goal. That is just poor.
It is, isn't it? It's appalling. I think this and I think the Northampton game at home, probably the worst two games I've watched. It was just absolutely awful. I don't know what's the matter with us. We can't attack. I don't know if it's a lack of confidence. I guess it is. I don't know if these players understand what Paul Cook's trying to do. I think Bishop kind of said that in an interview when Paul Cook came in. They were trying to still, figure out what Paul Cook was trying to do. But these players are getting on my nerves now. It just seems like every single game they're not putting in the fight that they need to be. They're playing for contracts. Some of them might not think they're going to get them, but they're still playing for contracts. You'd think that they'd be wanting to put in decent performances, but we just lack the effort. And our final third is a massive problem and really needs to be looked into in the summer, which I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it will be with the new owners coming in. But yeah, it was just really, really awful. And against the Rochdale team that, as you said, conceded 69 goals all season, and that is, terrible, terrible stats for Rochdale. Coming into that game, you think we'll easily win it, but not a single shot on target. It's just so poor. And then to top it off, Alan Judge came out after the game saying that it's a tough place to go. It isn't a tough place to go. It's Rochdale who are bottom of the league. Well, no disrespect to them, but yeah, it's just really poor, really depressing, and results like that aren't going to get you anywhere, are they?
No. Maybe on Football Manager is a tough place to go when there's a full virtual crowd cheering at you, but wasn't a great result. And well, you just actually mentioned it there. It was confirmed at 11 a.m. on Wednesday morning. We've all had these talks about the takeover and that, and they died down. They've gone very quiet. A few little murmurs here and there sort of been mentioned on Twitter, but it's just some guy saying, "Oh, it's going to happen." I spotted Brett Johnson and McDonald's and Copdock, or McDonald's and Copdock, Burger King and hot dog, something like that. But Wednesday morning, the Marcus Evans Group confirmed the sale of a majority stake of Ipswich Town Football Club for a reported fee of £40 million to new American investors, Game Changer 20 Limited. These are including 3 American investors. One of them is including Brett Johnson and Mike O'Leary, who's the former board member and CEO of West Brom and Oxford United, has now become the new chairman. Wow. Marcus Evans is gone. It's all changed in about a click like that, really. His 13-year era is now over. But now it's a little bit confusing now who owns what of Ipswich Town, but I'm going to try and explain it in my best way ever. I might get confused myself because it's a little bit, it's like crossing ropes and all sorts, but ORG Portfolio Management Group own 90% of Ipswich Town, but they will be called Game Changer 20 Limited, who will be the name of Ipswich Town. It's a new company that's been set up to run Ipswich Town, technically, but it'll be under that name. The 3 American investors, they all have a combined owned percent share of 5%, and Marcus Evans will still be involved in the club. He has a 5% stake in the club, but will have no influence on what happens at all in the club. And also the Ipswich Town PL still owns 12.5% stake in the club as well. But yeah, a little bit confusing, but I hope I explained it in my best way. But Dan, Marcus Evans is gone. I'm going to read a little bit of his statement out here. I've always said that I wasn't actively looking to sell. I would seriously consider an offer made by a credible party to invest in Ipswich Town in the way I provide, secures a long-term funding and helps the club go forward. I always want to take my club myself to the Premier League, and sadly, we fell too short in that window. At once it seemed possible. However, as to me, my ambitions for the club, it did not work out. I believe I found this, and I will look forward to cheering on the team every week as we work to get this club back to where we want to be. Dan, his era is over. I think it will be always remembered really for so much promise in the beginning when he came in. It's just weren't in a great place financially, and they were still knocking on the door of those playoffs and trying to get into the Premier League. His sort of backing when he came in was to really invest into the club, get them to the Premier League. It was that final little push they needed off the pitch to get them up there with the financial help. but unfortunately, his investment in the early days, it went wrong. It was all invested in the wrong areas. It very much backfired on him. I think he gave a lot of backing to Roy Keane, which that did not work out when he came in. His sort of big manager he brought in the time did not work out, and then got stuck in the championship. Then the money dried up, and then the slow decline from a stable championship side just turned into League One mediocrity. But as Marcus said, that he's very sad he didn't get his town to the Premier League. But will his time be remembered for really the decline of Ipswich Town in his hands and his and also under his guard, really? But should it be remembered really for he always was very consistent with the club. He was always the same. He was he kept Ipswich Town stable through the difficult times. Like the £100 million debt has now been written off, which was on him, which I think is kind of incredible, really, because he could have kept that with the club really for how many more years with the new owners. But he's been very nice and he's written that all off. But he always did right by the club. But unfortunately, it's about the results really on the pitch that matter.
It is, yeah, and I think his time will probably be remembered for the decline of the club. It's really not gone well from him in these last 13 years. He's tried pretty much everything, hasn't he? He got in some big names as managers. Obviously, his first appointment, his first two appointments in Roy Keane and Paul Jewell. He backed them with money, and I don't know, maybe the recruitment still wasn't good back then, but we didn't invest it in the right areas, as you said. And I think that under Mick, after that, Marcus Evans knew that he'd failed twice in backing a manager, so he wasn't going to do it then. And obviously, we all know that Mick should have been backed. He was the right manager for that. And if Marcus Evans did back Mick McCarthy at the time with money, the recruitment of Mick McCarthy, he knew who he wanted in. He got Waghorn and Garner for like $500,000, so he knows what he's doing. If he just had that money, I believe we would have maybe got promoted that season, in that 14-15 season, and I think people believe that as well. But yeah, made mistakes in the last two managers in Paul Hurst and Paul Lambert. It's just unfortunate this is the way it's ended, but we can't ignore the fact that we were a stable championship club and are now, only fighting for the playoffs in League One and looking like we're not going to get in them again this season. So that can't be ignored. That's a failure on his part, but also a failure on managers and players as well. He can't take all the blame for that, but then you've got to think of the other side where he's keeping the club afloat. He did well in doing that, and we thank him for that. And the fact that he's written off all the debt, it shows that how much he actually does care about the club. If he didn't show it, he definitely didn't show it. He didn't really talk to anyone at the club, well, the fans at least, at all. So we didn't really know what he thought, but it shows he does really care about the club and wants it to go forward. But I think this was the right time for things to change. It was crying out for change, and I'm glad that he's gone, but also thank him for writing off that debt as well, because he didn't have to do that, and that would have been a handful for the new owners coming in. So fair play to him.
Yeah, he could have easily kept that on, but I think that just shows that he's a nice guy, but unfortunately, it didn't work out for him, and it wasn't working really. I think with the not really doing any interviews. I think he only did one ever video interview in his time, and that was for the club anyway. so he's only done that, but it's absolutely mad as well. The new owners have been talking, and the new chairman. I want to start off with Michael Leary. He's going to be the new chairman of Ipswich Town. He's been speaking about how Premier League is the priority. That is the target they want to do. But they want to be in the Championship. I think I've watched the interview, and he's been very sort of realistic, and he knows a lot about the club, which I think is a good start. I think he's admired the club for many years. He said how he used to watch them a little bit when he's a young boy, but he's described it as really as they're too big for this league. Their status is too big here. do you feel that he understands what's going to happen here? He knows that what this club needs, and they're on about they want to get to the championship as quick as possible. If that's a year or two, that's fine, they said. So there is not much pressure really here on Paul Cook going forward next season. But do you feel what he's saying really? That's really sort of exciting you here because they know what they're going to do here, and it's going to be great, hopefully.
Well, yeah, that's what you hope, isn't it? And the interviews that they did yesterday, and it's all exciting stuff. As you said, they seem to know what they're talking about, and they know what they need to do to get this club back to where it should be, which is the championship at least. A stable championship club is where we should be, and there's a lot of teams in this league that should be there, but they seem to know what it is, and yeah, it's really exciting stuff, and I'm so pleased that they come in and actually really want to succeed and want to take this club somewhere good. It's strange to see Americans in Ipswich colours. I must admit, but it's really good to see. The new chairman's interview. He spoke well. Don't really know much about him. Hadn't really heard of him before, but he spoke well. He knew what needed to be done. And he said, what did he say? He said 14 months ago he was shown around the club by Lee O'Neill. So it's been on the cards for a while. I think he said that he didn't know if he was going to actually buy the club at that point, but it seems to happen quite quickly for us, but we didn't realise that it was going on for so long, for over a year now. So, yeah, really interesting to hear that. But, he seems to know what he's doing, which is really good to see. Of course, the American side of it, obviously they're not going to have as much say in the club as he does. But I think they're going to have a role to play, aren't they, in the financial side? And it's really good to see that they really want to get involved in the club. Brett Johnson looks like he's a really passionate person, and he's succeeded at all the other clubs that he's been at in America. You just need to research it to find that out. I think under Phoenix Rising, he's done fantastic. So he's had experience in that area. And I'm really pleased that he's here and hope he does well. And the other guys as well. Can't exactly remember their names right now, but I'm sure we'll learn them. Burke Bakai, I think, is one of them. He's the person
I was thinking of straight
Didier
away.
Drogba towards Phoenix Rising. And I don't know if you saw, but Didier Drogba actually tweeted about Ipswich yesterday, or this morning, or wherever it was, which I was like, wow, this is madness. But it's just surreal, isn't it? I can't believe this is actually happening. And I'm really hoping that it's exciting times coming up for Ipswich in the future. They said they're going to invest in players, which is really good to hear. They want this squad to succeed. There's going to be a lot of changes in the summer, but I trust in these guys to do what they think is right. And hopefully we'll be back in the championship before long.
Yeah, well, they're going to invest off the pitch as well, which I think is kind of exciting as well, because I think we can be perfectly honest. Portman Road is a beautiful stadium, but it's absolutely run down. It does need a little bit of maintenance here and there. But no, it'd be interesting. But yeah, as you said about the O'Leary thing, yeah, he looked around 14 months ago. We only knew about this from about February. It's the first time we heard about the takeover, but I think they've been sort of looking at it for that long. And I think it just shows how long the process is, because I think they said that Marcus wasn't looking to sell, but he was willing to listen. And I think he was doing everything right by the club. I don't think he wanted to put it in the wrong hands, and then it all goes a bit wrong. But I want to just mention there about Brett Johnson. He's been doing interviews well. I think he's going to be sort of the head really of who's going to be doing interviews. I think the other two will be silent partners, but they will be in and around the club. He's nicknamed them the Three Lions, these new three investors, which I think is absolutely fantastic. But I think he understands what's going on as well. He seems there's a lot of positivity around the club. I think he understands as well. I think he thanked fans for all the response to social media. Probably about 2 months of absolutely spamming him with everything that's going on. He's probably been going, oh, Twitter, just stop, turn off notifications now. But he said if he had a clean piece of paper and you wanted to find a club with history, pedigree, and gravitas, and with that family support, you couldn't find a better club than Ipswich. He's coming in. This it looks like now there's a little bit of light at the end of the road. It looks like the club's now finally going in the right direction. And with his backing, what we're seeing with Phoenix Rising, what he's done to them in America is pretty good, I think we could say. Do you feel that this could be the start of something here? This could be a very momentous day, a Wednesday, sorry. Do you feel that this could be the start of something great for its town, and we could, be talking about? I know it sounds bad, Premier League football. I know we've got to get the Championship first, but Premier League football here could be on the cards because they're on about it. We're excited. Like, oh my god, it could be happening, Dan.
Yeah, well, the Premier League football is what they're aiming for, and I think that's the only way they're going to get there. It's the only way they're going to make money, really. I mean, getting up to the Championship is good, but staying there is not going to be feasible long term for them. So I think that's the main aim, and it's really exciting to hear that. Not going to get too ahead of myself just yet, but it is amazing to hear them say that. But yeah, momentous day on Wednesday. Massive for the club and massive changes, which it's been needed for so long. We were in a rut. We were just boring as a club, weren't we? We were just declining, so a change was needed. And these American guys, Brett Johnson, he's been hounded on Twitter for months now. So he's probably glad that it's finally been announced. He probably still will get that on Twitter. But one thing I noticed within the first 24 hours, he was answering people on Twitter, and I think he really cares about that. He cares about the community and the fans, and I'm really pleased to see that because we haven't had that in so long. David Sheepshanks, he was that kind of character, I think. Talk to the fans a lot, but it's good to see that these guys actually want to meet the fans and get to know them. And in the first day, we know his face, which with Marcus Evans, we didn't know for years. There was like a leaked picture at a golf course or something, and we were like, is that really him? But yeah, it's really exciting times, and he's done his research. He knows, and I know it's his first time over here in English football, but he's had success in America. I don't know much about the American football system really, but he's succeeded there. So yeah, it's very exciting times at Town.
Yes,
I think.
Exciting.
Sorry, go on.
No, it's very. I was just about to say that it said about the interview there. It took Marcus Evans 10 years to do his first ever video interview. It's took him less than 24 hours to equal that. That's pretty good, and he's buzzing to get over here. I think he said if he didn't have a young family, he would be over here, but unfortunately, and do the quarantine. But unfortunately, what's going on in the world, he ain't going to travel over here just yet. But he will. He's on about late summer. He's going to be coming over here to at least watch a game, which I think. I'm pretty buzzing to see that. I want to go to his first game. I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah, imagine that first game in August.
Cool. Beautiful.
In the sun, Paul Cook as manager, new owners,
new CEO.
A lot of fans there. It's going to be, new CEO. It's going to be really good. But I just want to say this is a massive relief, and we've got to say thanks to these guys because we've been wanting this for so long, and finally, it looks like the club is on the up. And even on Monday we were so down in the dumps, weren't we, after that draw against Rochdale, and finally we've got something to look forward to, which hasn't happened in so long. So we've got to thank these guys for actually want to invest in the club, because this was a club that was declining, so they really must see something in it, the potential. They wouldn't buy this for no reason. So yeah, I'm so excited to see where this goes.
Yes, absolutely fantastic. Well, we better move away from the takeover and talk about the football. There is some football happening on Saturday and tomorrow, actually. Ipswich are back at home, looking to put that performance behind them versus Rochdale and try and jump into those playoff places. And they're playing MK Dons, who are travelling down to Portland Road today. Currently in 13th. Looking to bounce back after losing to Crewe on Easter Monday after 4 wins in a row. That's kind of mad for them. They're still 13th. It shows how crazy this league is. But Dan, Can Ipswich bounce back, or will MK Dons hit back at Ipswich Town after their loss on Easter Monday?
It's going to be a tough game. You know, MK Dons are a good side. They didn't start off well, but they've really gone on a run now, haven't they? And they're not far off the playoffs, I don't think, which is mad to say. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game. And obviously, with MK Dons, we've got that Norwich connection. Russell Martin, their manager. They've got Cameron Jerome as well. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game. We need to be on it because they're a decent side. I think it's still winnable. I think every game in this league is winnable, but after the performance against Rochdale, I haven't got much confidence that we can do that. I don't think it'll be a much changed side. Paul Cook will probably play the same system as well. You know, he's kind of changed it up in recent games, and I expect that to be the same. Three at the back again on tomorrow, but I'm not confident that we can get a win based on the last two performances. I'm going to go for a draw. I think I'm going to go for a 1-1.
Well, Dan's going for a 1-1 draw for tomorrow's game versus Ipswich Town versus MK Dons. Let us know what your score prediction will be on Twitter at Pitchside Talk. And let us know what you think to the new owners of Ipswich Town. What will they do? Do you feel that they will get into the Premier League or to the Championship? Return those sort of glory days. We want happier days. We want exciting days. We don't want these boring days and horrible days we had under Marcus Evans. We want something a bit more exciting. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about the Premier League this week. We've had 10 games, an average of 3.8 goals per game. So it must have been a pretty good week.
Pitchside Talk on IO Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on IO Radio's Fridays at 5 p.m. with me, George and Dan. As always, now before we get on talking about the Premier League this week, I better mention the social medias: Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram Talk_Pitch, YouTube and Mixcloud both at Pitchside Talk. Head over to our YouTube channel. We've got a exclusive video where we talk a little bit more in detail about Ipswich Town's takeover. And me and Dan, we talked about that. We'll take saw how that happened on Wednesday in a bit more detail. And also, if you missed us actually talking about Ipswich Town, don't worry. 6 p.m. on Fridays, straight after the show will be up on the YouTube Mixcloud, so you can listen back to any part of the show. Now, the Premier League is back after international breaks happen, but don't worry, no more international breaks now until the end of the season. Woohoo! Beautiful. I hate when international breaks are on because I don't want to watch football. It's like, ugh, it's boring. It's boring football. It's boring.
It is. It's a bit boring.
Yeah. But this week we've had 10 games happening with only one team. One team only now 4 wins away from the title. A big twist in the race for European football, and the battle for survival heated up. So here are the results from this weekend. So starting off with Saturday's first game, Chelsea lost 5-2. Yes, 5-2 to West Brom. I know. I cannot believe in myself. They lost 5-2 to West Brom. Leeds won 2-1 over Sheffield United in the Yorkshire sort of derby thing. Man City are now only 4 wins away from the Premier League title after a 2-0 victory over Leicester. Liverpool won 3-0 over Arsenal. Then kicking off Easter Sunday's game, Southampton won 3-2 over Burnley. Newcastle got a valuable point against Tottenham in a 2-2 draw. Aston Villa beat Fulham 3-1, and then Manchester United won 2-1 over Brighton. Everton drawed 1-1 with Crystal Palace, and West Ham got a 3-2 victory over Wolves. And that's where we're going to start off with the top 4 race. It's heated up. Chelsea, they lost to West Brom. Liverpool have now closed the gap down to, after winning against Arsenal. Tottenham dropped 2 points against Newcastle. And West Ham didn't bottle it this time after they got a 3-0 victory, a 3-0 lead, and they won 3-2. West Ham are now 4th, only 3 points separate 4th to 7th, Dan. I think it goes West Ham, Chelsea, Tottenham, Liverpool, I think is the table off the top of my head. I'm just going to double check myself because I can't actually.
You're
remember.
right. You're right.
I am
I've
right.
got the league table up here.
Beautiful. I never know if I'm right, but Dan, I'm going to have to ask you a very hard question here. But who's going to be in that last spot for Champions League football here? Because at the moment, it could be any one of those 4 teams, and next week it could be Tottenham in 4th and West Ham down to 6th. That's how mad it is at the moment.
It is, yeah. That's a very hard question. It's really hard to predict. West Ham, what a season they're having, and what a massive achievement that'll be to get fourth place. And the way they're playing, it's possible. They're going to be looking down there. They're next, aren't they, at the teams below them? And I think it's easily that NTs can catch them up because, West Ham could go into a game and not get a result as well because their form has been a bit on and off recently, hasn't it? So it could be interesting, but, I think they've got enough to do it. And as I said, massive achievement that'll be for David Moyes, a manager that I've never really liked before, but he seems to be doing all right now. So, yeah, that'll be a great achievement. Chelsea, poor loss against West Brom, massive surprise there, conceding 5 against West Brom. What an awful result that was. But before that, Tuchel done a fantastic job. He's not lost a single game. So, I think Chelsea have got every chance of getting into that top 4 as well if they can pick up results. Hopefully for them, this West Brom game would just be a blip and they'll come into the next. Who do they play next? I don't even know.
Crystal Palace.
Palace away. So, they could go to that game and easily win that game, and then they'll be right back in the top 4 again, depending on West Ham's result. Tottenham, I mean, they could get in the top 4 as well. I'm not going to predict Tottenham just because I don't think they'll have enough. I don't think they've been really good enough this year. And at some points, they've been okay, but their performances have been a bit poor. And then Liverpool, you never know with Liverpool. They've been poor this season, but you can guarantee that they'll go on an amazing run and win every single game towards the end of the season. So. I think there's a possibility that they could get top 4 as well, but I think overall I'm going to go for Chelsea just because they're closest to West Ham. I know they were poor against West Brom, but I still think Tuchel could do a really good job there. And their team, I guess, their new players haven't really performed this year like they should have done, but I still think their squad is strong enough, and I think they'll be able to leapfrog West Ham. So I'm going to go for Chelsea, but my predictions always seem to be wrong. So,
well, interesting prediction there. I must apologise. I accidentally whacked my microphone. That's what that big bong was on my end there. That's me being clumsy. I've been so clumsy. I have today. I keep whacking everything. It's annoying. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, so you're saying Chelsea going to get in. Well, Liverpool play Aston Villa on the weekend. Chelsea are away to Crystal Palace. West Ham are home to Leicester, and Tottenham are home to Manchester United. So some tough fixtures for those sides. Now we're going to talk about the relegation battle, and that's got intense this week. Newcastle, they got that valuable point versus Tottenham, extending their gap to them, to Fulham, was 3 points. And then Fulham, they would have to win against Aston Villa with a chance even just to jump outside the relegation zone because of the goal differences in their favour. And for 77 minutes, they had done that. They were outside the relegation zone, but then, well, Villa, they performed, I think, a very quick comeback, ending the game 3-1. But Dan, Fulham, so close. They were so close to being outside that drop zone. But that point that Newcastle got here, could that be the difference, really, when it comes to the end of the season? Because Newcastle, unfortunately, they are struggling to win games. Fulham, when they get that opportunity to jump outside the relegation zone, they don't take it with both hands. It seems to be really that both sides here are making mistakes. It's going to be who makes the fewest mistakes into this now crucial run to the end of the season.
Yeah, it is. Obviously, absolutely crucial run. And both these teams, I think, Fulham especially, we all thought they were, they went on a really good run, beat Liverpool and Tottenham in that time. And we all thought that was going to be it. They were going to make the great escape, but they've just dropped off recently, haven't they? They haven't been picking up the results they need. And especially with Newcastle being so poor at the moment, they need to do that. But yeah, they've been poor recently and just haven't been able to rise out of that bottom 3. I don't think you can call it yet. I don't think that Newcastle point against Tottenham defined it because, it's only 3 points. Still got, 8 games to go. I think Newcastle have a game in hand on Fulham. So, it's still close. If Newcastle can just get that one win, that would be 6 points, and that would be crucial for them going into this final bit of the season. But it's still too close to call for me. it's kind of gone down to the two teams. I think a couple of weeks ago when you asked me, I said Brighton would have got relegated, but they've done well to kind of bridge that gap now, and they look like they're fine and safe. So it's just between Newcastle and Fulham now, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with them towards the end of the season. I don't know if they played each other twice yet. I don't know if they play each other. Yes, they do at the end of the season, don't they?
Yes.
If they're still that close, what a game that'll be to end the season. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see who stays up. And with the way Newcastle performing, it's not looking good for them. But then Fulham, they can't get the results they need.
Yeah, I was just about to go. Does this game week make it really crucial for us? Because in a few hours' time, Fulham are going to be playing Wolves. We know how strong they have been this season. I know they're sort of lacking down tail, but we know how much quality they have. And with Newcastle playing Burnley on Sunday, and if Newcastle win here and Fulham lose, could that be the defining moment in the relegation battle? I know there's still a few more games to come, but both sides have got to play a lot of the top half of the table still. Could that, if Newcastle win, could that be the difference? Could we say that will be it? Because it's going to come down to fine margins. We know it will.
Yeah, especially with so little games to go, it's always going to come down to fine margins. But I think if Newcastle can get that gap up to 6 points, I think they'll probably stay up. Fulham have a tough game against Wolves. As you said, Wolves haven't been amazing this year, but they're still a tough team to play against. And especially, Wolves coming into a game against a team in the bottom three, they'll come to it thinking that they can win. So it's going to be a tough game. If Newcastle can just pick up a point against Burnley, that might do them well, but they'll want all 3 points. Burnley, they're not going to have really anything to play for. I think they're 7 points off the bottom three. That's not too much, is it? But I think they'll be safe. So if they can just get a scrappy 1-0 win, I'm sure that'll be fine for them. And if that can go up to 6 points, then I think they'll be fine. But we all know that football isn't as easy as that. And I doubt that will happen because we know the Premier League this year, this has been a mad season. There's going to be twists and turns to come.
Yes, it's going to be a mad season. It already has, but I'm just going to read through the games that we've got coming up this weekend. So in a few hours' time at 8 o'clock, we've got Fulham playing West Ham. Wolves, sorry. I've already said it before and I can't say it now. Oh, God, it's bad. Okay, Fulham versus Wolves. If you want to see the preview for that we have done, head over to our Twitter at Pitch I Talk. You can see what we think will happen in that game this evening. And then we've got Man City there playing Leeds on Saturday lunch. Liverpool playing Aston Villa at 3 o'clock on Saturday. And then the tea time game is Crystal Palace versus Chelsea. Then kicking off the games for Sunday at 12 o'clock is Burnley versus Newcastle. West Ham play Leicester at 2:05, and then for the 4:30 game is Spurs versus Manchester United, and then 7 o'clock it is Sheffield United versus Arsenal, and then we have 2 Monday night games. Kicking off at 6 o'clock is West Brom versus Southampton, and then 8:15 is Brighton versus Everton. Well, that's quite a good bit of Premier League section. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the Champions League. We've had the first legs of the quarterfinals. They have been played. And we'll find out what happened after this.
The best place in Ipswich to hear the latest football debates, Pitchside Talk on IO Radio.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on IO Radio. It's Fridays at 5 p.m. with me, George, and Dan. As always now, before we move on talking about the Champions League this week, I better mention the social medias, Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram Talk_Pitch, YouTube and Mixcloud, both at Pitchside Talk. If you want to listen back to this previous show, if you missed Dan talk about Ipswich Town, us talk about the Premier League, don't worry, 6 p.m. on Friday, the whole show will be back up on catch up. And also, if you want to listen to us talk a bit more in detail about the new owners of Ipswich Town, yes, Ipswich Town have new owners. Don't worry, that's on our YouTube channel. Head over to Pitchside Talk and you can find it on there. Now, this week we've had the quarterfinals of the Champions League. All the first legs have been played with Man City versus Borussia Dortmund, Real Madrid versus Liverpool, Porto versus Chelsea, and last year's finalists Bayern Munich versus PSG taking on each other. And here are the results from the first tie. So Man City, Phil Foden's last gasp strike gave Man City a slim advantage over Borussia Dortmund heading into next week's leg at Dortmund with a 2-1 victory. Pep Guardiola highlighted how the second half was much better than the first, but he was very aware that Borussia Dortmund are still in this tie thanks to that away goal. But they should have had two when Jude Bellingham beat Ederson to the through ball. He appeared to have kicked the Borussia Dortmund player, but actually on the replay, Edison actually kicked the teenager, went flying over. The referee blew the whistle for the ball, went into the back of the net. It was, I think, 1-1 at the time, and the referee disallowed the goal, booked Jude Bellingham for tackling the goalkeeper, but actually the goalkeeper actually kicked Jude Bellingham. Absolutely shocking decision. Looks like all the luck is on Man City's side.
Can't believe that.
I cannot as well. It's awful decision. But that is unfortunately what has happened. But Bristol Dortmund do have an away goal going into the second leg. But a team that absolutely struggled in the second leg was Liverpool. And Jurgen Klopp highlighted that his side heading back to Anfield, looking for a comeback after a 3-1 defeat over Real Madrid. Klopp said that Liverpool made it too easy for them, Vinicius Junior finishing off the first chance of the game. Asensio capitalizing on Trent Alexander's bad head back pass. But however, Mo Salah's goal got Liverpool back into the away tie with the away goal, but Junior then made it 3-0 as Liverpool fell asleep at the back and decided to do the mannequin challenge, which I thought had passed a few years ago, but apparently it's still a trend. But Liverpool have got to head back to Anfield looking to make another comeback, another big mountain to climb over a Spanish side. But it looks like that away goal has given a little bit of a lifeline in the second leg. Now moving on to the other games, Chelsea, they bounced back after a few testing days, earning a commanding first leg quarter-final win over Porto, a 2-0 victory, 2 away goals on a neutral venue in Seville, thanks to Mason Mount and Ben Chilwell's goal. And Thomas Tuchel after the game praised his side for their character for just getting a victory, but also said that praised Mason Mount's quality. But he did say that Chelsea did still need a little bit of luck in the game. But he did say that Mason Mount has made a very big step in his time at the club. And then finally, the last year's finalists, Bayern Munich and PSG, they have met in the quarterfinals. And in the first leg, Kylian Mbappe scored 2 goals for PSG, producing a superb away performance, beating the title holders Bayern Munich 3 goals to 2, giving PSG a 3-2 advantage heading into the second leg. But hopefully Bayern Munich will be, fingers crossed, that Robert Lewandowski will be back, as he missed out on the first leg due to a knee problem. So yeah, that's basically everything for your Champions League this week. Don't worry, next week we'll be covering the second legs. Yes, we've only got a week until the second legs happen, so we'll know who will be playing who in the semi-finals. It'll be very interesting to see. But when we come back, we're going to be doing... Well, actually, wait, I think we should have a little bit of quick time to do a football roundup before that shocking referee decision happens again.
Pitchside Talk, footy debate from the Premier League Outback.
Hello and welcome back to Pitchside Talk here on iRadio. It's Fridays at 5 p.m. with me, George, and Dan, as always. Now, before we move on, talking about Football Roundup, which we haven't got much time for, perfectly honest. I'm not very good at this. Twitter is at Pitchside Talk. Instagram is talk_pitch. YouTube and Mixclub are both at Pitchside Talk. If you want to listen back to this show or any of our previous other shows, don't worry, 6 p.m. Friday, this will be up. And if you want to see some additional content, us talking about Ipswich Town's new owners in a bit more detail, don't worry. We've done a special video on that, and you can go to our YouTube channel to see that now. Well, football roundup time now. Hooray! We love a bit of football roundup. And I'm going to go first this week because we actually haven't decided who's going to go first. And I think you went first last week, Dan. But I've got some news about Newcastle. So the fan group, the Newcastle Supporters Trust, which has over 10,000 members, are attempting to raise funds to try and buy a stake in Newcastle United if Mike Ashley is successful in selling the club. Yes, they are trying to buy a stake in the club. We do know that last year they did have a bid from the Saudi Arabian-backed group, which did collapse last year, which was actually supposed to be going through, but it didn't go through in the end. But oh my God, I can't speak. The Supporters Trust are now trying to raise enough funds to try and buy a stake in Newcastle to keep, I guess, Newcastle a fan club, which I think would be good going forward. Really think Newcastle do need that. Newcastle has such a big fan base. It's absolutely bonkers how big their fan base is, and I think that'd be good to see that happen in the future, because you don't see that happen much now, really, at all. Because I know Swansea had that, don't they? They have 50% owned by the fans, 50% owned by the owner, and we have Ipswich Town as well, with the fans owning 12.5% of a stake in Ipswich Town. But Dan, what is your news this week for us?
So I've got some more Ipswich news because
Lovely.
that keeps coming and coming recently, doesn't it? With all these new faces coming in, we've got another new face coming in, a CEO. Not really sure who it's going to be yet, but he's going to be appointed sometime in the next few weeks or months, I think they said. So that'll be interesting to see who the new CEO is. I think the Bristol City chairman, Mike Ashton, has been mentioned, and that looks the most likely. I know Bristol City fans don't really like it, but I'll take him because he's had championship experience. But yeah, new CEO coming in, another new face. It's all change at Ipswich, isn't it?
Imagine, I know it's going to sound bad. Imagine if the new CEO was announced as Lee O'Neill. Oh, God.
Oh God, I don't think that would be very popular, would it?
Oh, no. That would be absolutely unpopular as anything. But that is all we've got this time for Football Roundup. Well, that is the end of the show as well. Dan, I must thank you for being on the show this week. As always, talking about Ipswich Town in a lot of detail about the takeover and all sorts. It's been a roller coaster week, but I think next week will be a little bit calmer and not as chaotic, I think we have to say.
Yeah, we haven't got any expected breaking news anymore, have we? Like we have done in the past 5 months.
Gosh, yeah, I even forgot this was happening. It's absolute madness. But yeah. So before we go, Ben mentioned the social medias: Twitter at Pitchside Talk, Instagram Talk_Pitch, YouTube, Mixcloud, both at Pitchside Talk. If you want to listen back to this show, don't worry, it'll be up in a few minutes on the YouTube and the Mixcloud. And you want to listen back to any of our previous other shows, don't worry, they're all up there. And if you want to see some additional content where we talk about the new ownership in a bit more detail, don't worry, we've done a special video for that on our YouTube channel. So coming after what is coming up after us, we've got the Gap Show 6 until 7, the Reba Show 7 till 9, and Flip the Switch 9 until 10. So I've been George this week. He's been Dan. We'll see you next week, and ciao.
Yeah.
The whistle has been blown for full time. Tune in next week for another jam-packed show.